The Three Questions, by Leo Tolstoy. Summary and analysis. The king has a belief that people who could find the answers to three questions would always succeed. These three questions were: what is the right time to begin something? Which people should he listen to? What is the most important thing for him to do? The king offered a huge sum of money as a reward to anyone who could come up with the answer, and he received several kinds of answers. Many wise men answered the first question, and a few of them suggested making a timetable, and others wanted him to leave everything and focus on looking after works. A few suggested having a council of wise men decide everything, and others said that some works need urgent attention. Some gave their opinion to focus on the future and take the assistance of a magician. As a response to the second question, some wise men said that he should listen to his counselors, priests, doctors, or soldiers. For the third question, the answers were that science and religious worship must be the highest priority. The king was not satisfied with any of the suggestions and went to a hermit known for his wisdom. The king wore simple clothes and left behind his horse and bodyguards. The hermit lived in a hut and was digging the ground. The king asked the three questions and did not receive any reply. The hermit was old and weak, so the king started searching for him. After a while, he asked again but did not receive an answer. The king asked again after an hour, to which the hermit replied that someone was coming. When the king turned around, he saw a wounded man. He saw that the man was bleeding profusely and then fainted. The king washed his wounds with his handkerchief until the bleeding stopped. The man asked for water, and the king gave it. It was evening, and both of them took the man outside the hut. The man was lying quietly on the bed, and the tired king slept. When he woke, the injured man apologized to him, and the king was shocked. The man revealed that he was the king's enemy because he killed his brother and took his property. He found this to be the perfect opportunity to take revenge. He planned to kill the king because he came to the wise man alone. The plan was to kill the king on his way home, but because he did not turn up, the enemy came out of the hiding place. The king's guards recognized him and attacked him fiercely. The man said that he was indebted to the king because he was his savior. He took the pledge to save the king. The king promised to return the forfeited money and to send medical help. The king asked the hermit once again for his answers, to which the hermit said that the most important time is our present because it is the only moment when we have the power to act. The most important person at a moment is self because the future is unpredictable, and the most important business is to be kind and good to others because we have been sent in this world to serve this noble cause. So this way the hermit tells the king that all the answers are within him. By helping the wounded man and by spending time with the hermit, he gets to know the answer to his questions that he got through self-realization. He learned to do good to others without thinking about own self. The story has themes of wisdom, knowledge, awareness, forgiveness, kindness, and acceptance. Throughout the story, the theme of wisdom is explored. The king is seeking wisdom from other people about how he can run his kingdom better. He is looking for answers and finally had to rely on a hermit. The hermit does not entirely agree with how the rich live their lives and suppress the financially weaker. He does not approve of the hierarchy. The story, Three Questions by Leo Tolstoy, is an interesting story about a king who believes that if one knows the answers to three particular questions, they would never fail in life. He seeks answers to these questions. The story is about his journey towards finding solutions. Characters. Hermit. The hermit is a poor outcast. He lives a simple life. He is frail and weak and was barely able to turn the soil using his spade. He was a very wise man, and that is shown as the story progressed. The hermit is concerned with the present and initially ignores the king when he asks the three questions. The king thought that the hermit was disinterested, but he was focusing on the task at hand. He helps the king tend to the man's wounds but does not pry on the king's interactions with the stranger and gives him room to understand the man. The hermit is discreet and has an excellent perspective. He did directly give verbal answers to the king's question and guided him to it by getting him to actively engage with the tasks at hand. King. The king is an ambitious, open-minded, and intelligent ruler. He is not pleased with the answers given to him and approaches the hermit. He is forgiving and forgives the man for his intentions of killing the king. He kept aside the resentment and helped the wounded man. Not just that, he also saves his life. Wounded man. The wounded man was the king's enemy, who planned to kill king as revenge for his brother's execution and forfeit all of his property. However, the king saves his life, and he has a change of heart. Themes. The story is based on the theme of knowledge because that is what the king was looking for. However, the king is looking for the answers outside when all of those are within him. The king is aware of his surroundings throughout the story. Throughout the story, Tolstoy tries to explain that the people who have questions about the way they must live their lives have the answers within themselves. The story puts forward the idea of being forgiving and accepting without any resentment. Resentment often clouds people's judgment. The most important message is to do good for the people around you. Ethical theme pervades the story. Tolstoy throws light on the path to a successful life by maintaining moral standards and emphasizing on good deeds. What Tolstoy highlighted through the story is the abandonment of self-interest for the good of others because serving others can only attain fulfillment in life. The king acts as the mouthpiece for several other people who also search for the purpose of life. Often we do not see what lessons life offers and try to search for meaning in other things, but only in vain. From the story, it is evident that one must look into his or herself for most of the difficulties faced. This is because our very surrounding, the people we live with and our own actions pave the way for our happiness. The story also focuses on wisdom. The story, in fact, began with the king who was in search for knowledge regarding the right time, necessary people and the right thing to be done to accomplish whatever task he laid his hands on. The hermit, who was a wise, polite and humble man, was approached by the king who told him that the answers he was looking for exists within him, on his work without being bothered. Interestingly, the episode of the wounded man opened the king's eyes. He realized that the right time, the right person and the right thing to do, all depends upon the present time in which he was living. The regret for the past or worrying for a future time, in any case, must not be considered too much as only the present time enables a person to exert his or her power. The present time is the time when a person is fully aware of his or her actions, thoughts and beliefs. A forgiving attitude helps a man shed false judgments towards others. This is very well reflected in the story. Although the wounded man counted the king as his enemy, he was overwhelmed by the king's actions and behavior towards him. No matter what he had lost, the man forgave the king. The king became his ally only by doing the right thing at the right time. If the king had not saved his life, two things could have happened: either the king would have been killed by the man or the king would not have made peace with his enemy so easily. As already mentioned, the story is written in the form of a parable. Tolstoy's moralistic views get upheld in the story, thereby touching upon human values and principles one must follow to attain success and happiness in life. Through The Hermit, Tolstoy gives a moral lesson encouraging his readers to live the moments in their present life. Although the hermit is referred to as frail and weak, he emerges as the wisest man who can eradicate the king's inquisitiveness regarding the 3 questions. Rather than giving direct answers to the king's queries, the hermit chose to answer it differently. He led the king to realize the importance of the present time, by giving him ample scope to experience, develop ideas and finally answer his own questions himself through the actions he performed. Style and language. In the story, 3 questions, Tolstoy's simple use of language is reflected. He uses the third-person narration. It must be noted that Tolstoy uses simple language to address grave issues that are philosophical in nature. Short sentences mark his writings with the intent to explain complicated nature of human beings, and therefore, he gives emphasis to detail observation. The story moves in a linear motion and chronologically the readers are acquainted about the problem, that is, the questions that arouses in the king's mind. Then the writer carefully builds up the climax in which the wounded man arrives and is attended by the king and the hermit. The wounded man who apologizes and enables the story end with a positive aspect follows this of the revelation. In what we see as a chronological structure, lies the power of Tolstoy because as the story unwinds, it becomes possible for Tolstoy, like the hermit in case of the story, to present before his readers certain issues that have deeper meanings and are of universal nature. What is the striking point in Tolstoy's writings is the scope given to the characters to grow on their own and most importantly the way he plays with the reader's imagination without imposing his philosophies directly. To conclude, the greatness of Tolstoy's craftsmanship is evident when he serves as the model of a great number of writers. As admitted by the Nobel laureate J.M. Coetzee, the ability to do something that sounds easy but is in fact very difficult, namely to write about a moment, is what Tolstoy is apt at, as evident in this short story as well. After reading the unit, you have been familiarized with one of the greatest Russian writers, Leo Tolstoy. You have been acquainted with his major works like War and Peace, Anna Karenina, etc. and some of his plays, non-fictional pieces as well as his other short stories. You must have noted that his moralistic inclination towards religion contributed in writing stories like the Three Questions. You are now familiarized with the themes of the short story and well acquainted with its plot and structure. Besides, we have discussed the style and language of Tolstoy, particularly with reference to this story.